Hello there YouTube, hope everyone's keeping well out there. I've been tagged in a video by Nasty James, aka FlashbackTNT.
You filthy swine!
He's been a very mean man and tagged me in the video response to my favourite top 10 games of all time, which is no easy task. He was tagged in the video, the poor sod, by, and he's changed his channel name, James's Time Warp Zone of Tat. I will leave both of their video links in the description below. Please go and check them out. Two lovely people, he says, through gritted teeth, and two great channels, so please go and check them out. Now, I did plan on making this video at some point. This video response has obviously brought things forward somewhat, and it's gonna sound a bit cliche, but these games, or at least 50% of them, I say from like numbers 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, those numbers could kind of change. They could move up and down the list, and maybe some could come out and a couple more could go in. Now, I'm going to be a good boy. I'm not going to mention any honourable mentions. I'm just going to get on with the 10 games in the list, and I'm going to try and go through from 10 through to 1 to get even more accurate, but let's see how we go, so bear with me. Now, at number 10 is a game on the PlayStation 3, and it's Red Dead Redemption. Now, I remember just before this came out, funnily enough, it was in the same year, me and a friend had a few drinkies and we were chatting about games and what genres need to be tapped. And I said the Western, and I'm not really a huge Western fan per se. I like my spaghetti Westerns, but I'm not really into the, your John Waynes or anything like that. But I always felt that that particular genre wasn't really covered very well in the gaming landscape. I mean, you had a billion and one sci-fi shooters and adventure games and wartime, World War II games and things like that, but not so much this. And when this came out, I thought this looks absolutely incredible. It's by Rockstar, so obviously they were going to give the story and the characters and the open world a lot of polish, which they did. And yeah, I got hold of this and played it and just absolutely fell in love with it. Couldn't put it down. Rushing home from work to jump back onto this thing and go and do side quests, and really took my time with the game and experience, making sure I did a lot of the side quests and then pushed forward with the story. And the lead character, John Marsden, in it is fantastic. I know I did enjoy Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PlayStation 4, but for me, the story in this just hooked me a little bit more, and I think a lot of it's to do with, like I said originally, the Western genre not being tapped, and me just jumping on board with this, riding around on your horse, getting different horses. Brilliant. And I did like the dead eye mechanic where time would slow down, and when you were in a gunfight, and you could pinpoint where you're going to shoot your opponent, and did enjoy that. But the thing that's sort of sealed this for me and made this reach the list was the ending in this. I'm not going to spoil it just in case any of you, for some unknown reason, gamers, haven't played this one yet. If you haven't, please do. It's absolutely brilliant. But the ending in it really sort of like pulled at my heartstrings, and yeah, it was very, very well done. And in the bit that happens after that, and you've got like a musical piece that happens, so it's kind of quite story driven and narrative driven, this game. But yeah, that one is definitely in the list this week at the very least. Now, number 9, it's a shooter on the Super Nintendo, and it's Super Protector, the Alien Wars, aka, if you're in the United States, Super Contra 3 Alien Wars. And that was the first one, the first iteration I played back in the day. My friend's dad was in the Navy, he would travel the world, and he brought back the NTSC USA copy of Contra 3 and lent it to me with his adapter. I remember thinking that looked quite funky. You had to plug like a donor cart into the back of it, a donor power cart, in order to get the game to play. and I just fell in love with it. I played this not long after getting the Super Nintendo, from jumping from my Sega Master System up to the Super Nintendo, and with the graphic fidelity and the sound on this, they really pushed the Mode 7. My eyes were just falling out of my head. It looked absolutely stunning. The soundtrack's fantastic. I've got that on vinyl downstairs with my record player. Konami and Capcom could do no wrong back in these days. They pumped out so many great games, and this was a great left to right shooter, so pick up and play. It could get quite difficult on medium level. You know, we completed it, and I think we did on hard. I think we did on difficult, on hard, because you got a different ending and a different extra section if you played it through on hard. You know, great weapons in this, great animation, really tight control, great level design and enemies, and the boss battles in this were fantastic. Some of the best, you know, as soon as I think of magnificent bosses in games, a lot of these do come to mind. And yeah, there's a bit of slowdown here and there, just when the action got a bit crazy on there, especially when there were lots of enemies on screen and you used your nuke bomb to wipe out the enemies. It would slow down a bit there, but really good. And some levels would into splites where it was top down and you would run around in like a Mode 7 kind of rotating map. And a lot of people don't really like those sections. I actually didn't really mind them. They weren't as good as the left to right, but I didn't really mind them. Fantastic game. I can just go back and pick that up and play it whenever and just have a whale of a time. A fantastic game. Next, we're going to leap to the PlayStation 1. Yeah, and I sort of had to get this one in there, and it's Metal Gear Solid, the first one. Now, at the time, I've said this in a couple of other videos, I was away studying for my degree up in Taunton, and I had, in my halls of residence room, I had my Nintendo 64 with Zelda, F-Zero, 1080, snowboarding. Those are the games that instantly come to mind. And my friend Tom, in the room adjacent, he had a PlayStation with some great games that we were playing. Tekken 2 and then 3, superb. Resident Evil 2 and this. And you know, coming from the Nintendo 64 over to this, you could see where the PlayStation CD medium really took advantage of the disc storage space, where you could have FMV movies, you could have orchestral, real clear soundtracks, fully arranged soundtracks, and yeah, it really helped to tell more of like a movie, a real story with loads of cutscenes. And I know Kojima isn't necessary for everyone. He's annoyed me. Well, he's annoyed me, but I do find him a little bit pretentious sometimes with his games and his messaging and his pacing and narrative in the games. But yeah, at the time, this just absolutely blew me away. I couldn't believe it was like playing a spy, James Bond-esque espionage character in a movie, but in game form. Snake was brilliant, voiced brilliantly, great dialogue, loved all the communication with your boss and other people. And the boss battles in this were fantastic as well. Great boss battles, you know, and some of them were quite moving again, which showed that video games were really progressing. I could waffle on and on about these games. Next, originally for the GameCube, is Resident Evil 4. I did pick it up on the Wii and the PlayStation 4, and I've completed it on all of them, and I'll definitely go through it again. I just absolutely love this game. It was a tough call to choose this one. It just beat the original Resident Evil, the remake on the GameCube for me. Although I could probably squeeze this into the list, but and there is an honourable mention. But this for me, I know a lot of people don't think it true to the survival horror roots of Resident Evil, and I get that, I understand that. But they tried something a bit fresh and it worked for me. I really liked it. Again, I don't mind the tank controls in the originals, but I appreciate what they did here, where you had the camera sort of slightly over the protagonist Leon Kennedy's shoulder, and the controls were sort of tweaked and modified for the GameCube controller. The graphics again looked absolutely stunning. It was back in the day when everything was quite vibrant and colourful on Nintendo's GameCube platform, but this had a real gritty, grey, browny colour palette to it, and it just lent itself really, really well. I love the atmosphere of the game. I love the way it just chucks you into that village. Is it in South America? I believe it is. And yeah, things start off reasonably wacky, and then it just gets super crazy as you progress through the game. There's some great encounters. Again, really good music from Capcom. Love the save room theme that Capcom put in there. I always love the save room themes. Great game, and I remember at the time thinking this is just the best game ever, so it has to go on the list. When I chose these games, it was kind of games that, yeah, obviously they still hold nostalgia now, and I still think they're good, but I remember at the time they were benchmark seminal games. And sticking with the word seminal, Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64 console. What a game. I said this in my, I believe it was my N64 memories video, that I used to work in the city centre, and on my lunch breaks I'd go through town. I'd pop down on this one instance to Toys R Us, and I noticed a big entourage of people around like the gaming section, some sort of kiosk there, and I couldn't quite see. I didn't know much about the launch of this thing. I knew Nintendo were working on something. It was called, nicknamed or codenamed the Ultra 64. But because we didn't have the internet, then we just had magazines. It was, you were relying on going into news agents and picking up these magazines and finding these bits out, or as just sort of things you would hear from friends in the gaming landscape and how you would get your information. But anyway, seeing this thing being played by loads of little kids, and I could see the N64 logo at the top, and my eyes lit up, and I sort of ran over, almost wanted to push little kids and mums and dads out of the way to get to this machine. And when my eyes laid, I laid eyes on the gameplay itself, and seeing Mario and his beautiful, or at the time definitely beautifully animated character moving around, the analog stick, the way he would walk, and then you would really push it, and then he would do his little trot and sprint around, and the little sounds of his footsteps. The world looked fantastic. It was brilliantly realised. Before this, playing on my friend's PlayStation, he had a PlayStation and I kept my SNES to the bitter end. I was always thinking, what are Nintendo going to do next with some of their games? And my mind's eye would just race and picture these great games. But Nintendo knocked it out of the park with this. They really set a standard that other companies had to sort of hold up to, and many of them didn't. Rare come close a couple of times. Maybe this game hasn't aged too well. You could say you can nitpick a lot of these games, but at that time, nothing. You'd seen nothing like it, and I was just in awe of this thing. And from that moment of seeing this game play and seeing the very weird N64 controller on this kind of hardwired into this cabinet, demo cab, I was like, I've got to get this machine, I've got to get this game. I just couldn't wait. And then once I knew this game was being played in Toys R Us, I was down there numerous lunchtimes after that, playing this thing and just loving it. Just couldn't wait to get the Nintendo 64 console. And to save up a fair bit because it was blimmin' expensive when it come out. But yeah, sticking with Mario, it's Mario Kart 8. I don't own a Switch, and I'm sure the deluxe version's better on the Switch. Got no interest in the Switch, and I will get into that in another video. But this, oh god, again, when I played it, I knew the Wii U wasn't as powerful as the LEN. What was it? Was it PlayStation 4? It was kind of in between that stage, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. But Nintendo can squeeze they always find a way of squeezing every bit of juice out of their system, and it looked stunning, and it still looks stunning today. I think you could easily pass that on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and no one would bat an eyelid. It looks so smooth, the textures are fantastic. I've always been a fan of the Mario Kart franchise, dating back to the Super Nintendo. Used to go and play that all the time. Favourite character was Toad. Loved it. Thought the game was brilliant. So addictive. Great gameplay. On the N64, I remember being a little bit disappointed that the characters weren't 3D. They were in sprites, but I understand the reasons, later on technically for doing that. But still, a great game, especially with a 4-player split screen. Really liked the game on the Game Boy Advance, Super Circuit, brilliant, and all the way through. I was a little bit disappointed with the Wii version. There was something about it, I think it was the rubber banding and the blimmin' blue shell of death, as we used to call it. And this is something I think in the Mario Kart games, they should have like a pro setting or an option setting where you can tweak what items you have in there, and you could call it the cheap mode, if you will, option, where you can have that awful blue shell in there. Don't like the thing. Anyway, back to this. I remember when me and my wife were then boyfriend and girlfriend, driving out across Dartmoor to get the Wii U console, and even to this day, it was a fantastic price. With Mario Kart 8 and a few other games, Tekken, and playing this, and I just couldn't believe it. I had such a great buzz of holding the Wii U pad, which I personally don't mind using. It does look big, but it feels absolutely comfortable for me. Don't mind it at all. Like the idea that on the screen you can obviously go to different views, the map view and alternate views, and you look at your rankings and your positionings on there. Nice little touch. And yeah, it was just glorious. The track design in this, Mario Kart tracks have been mostly hit, a few misses in some of the games, but in this one, absolutely glorious. Glorious tracks. Didn't mind the mechanic with the gravity off rail, so your car's going upside down. Fantastic, great characters, and I love that they did the DLC with the Zelda and the F-Zero tracks. Was just the icing on the cake. I've got those on the Wii U. Brilliant. For me, this is Mario Kart at its best. It just peaked. The only disappointing thing with this blimmin' version is the battle mode, which is what Nintendo were thinking at the time of even including that monstrosity on this game. I do not know, but I know they fixed that for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch. And like I said, I look forward to playing it at some point, but the bread and butter is in this game. I'm happy with it. Fantastic. How the hell are they going to top this? I know they're working on that. I've just seen some, some news. Like it's news anyway. Of course they're going to be working on a follow-up to Mario Kart 8. But I see that coming out maybe for the next iteration of console, handheld, whatever they do after the Switch. I think that might be a launch title for the new system, but we'll see. Right then, at number 4, we're jumping companies. It's Sega, and it's my favourite Mega Drive game of all time, Streets of Rage 2. This is basically an ornament because I don't collect for the Mega Drive. I've got the 50 game compilation on the PlayStation 3 and the 50 game compilation on PlayStation 4. I've got emulation and ROMs on my Mac for the tastier titles. I don't really have too much nostalgia for it. It wasn't a system I owned back in the day, but it is from an era of gaming that is very close to my heart, and that's 16-bit, which is a bit of a clue for a couple of the games coming up. And yeah, Streets of Rage 2, like Pro Protector, is just very pick up and play. I will never ever get bored playing it. Just perfecting my fighting style. Completed it lots and lots of times. Excellent soundtrack. I'm not going to bleat on too much about the soundtrack and the graphics. For me, they just raised everything up just that little notch over the first one. The first one was really, really good, and I don't mind 3, but this is Streets of Rage 2 is for me the best one, like many people out there I know. And I've also got a very good version on the 3DS, which is a digital download of the game in 3D, and the parallax scrolling just really pops. It is a fantastic version of Streets of Rage 2. Love it. Great memories. Going at my mate Graham's, who lived a couple of doors up for me back when I was a lad. And yeah, he had a Mega Drive. I think we played this one. We definitely played the first one, and just had a whale of a time. Loved the game. So addictive. So playable. Better than Final Fight. I used to love playing Final Fight in the arcades, but I think later on you discover that this has just got much more depth in the fighting. You've got more moves. It wasn't just punch and kick and you get knocked down. You could block and you could grab people. You could swing over them. You had the move where you could hit people coming behind you. You had the sort of clearing move that would granted take a little sliver of life off you, but it would clear a couple of enemies if they were in front and behind you. Yeah, really polished game, really thought about. Brilliant. Next at number 3 is Dark Souls for the PlayStation 3, but I did pick up the remaster on PlayStation 4. Completed this a few times. It's a very lengthy game. I like to take my time with this one. I just love the Souls universe. I love what From Software did. I know a lot of people see this as hard. It is a challenging game, but it's your fault if you die. It teaches you as you play. So whenever you do die, you learn by your mistakes. You gradually inch towards bettering yourself and getting further in the game and learning more about the world. It's very cryptic. It doesn't give much away in terms of the story and what you've got to do as such. It just sort of lets you go into the game. It's a very quiet game. It's a very atmospheric game. It's quite a lonely game. I do like those games where there's a great sense of like isolation and discovery. A bit like the Metroid Primes and a bit like Death Stranding, which I'm playing now and really enjoying. Just that and I just find myself immersing into those games. I could have picked the original From Software game that I played, Demon Souls, on the PlayStation 3. That was my first entry into this kind of franchise, the Souls franchise. Bloodborne is fantastic, and Dark Souls 3 I really liked on the PlayStation 4, but I'm going with this one because they just crafted a slightly better world in this to Demon Souls. They've got a lovely hub section that they've done away with the hub world, should I say, and the way the levels are structured in this is just much better, I think, to Demon Souls. Definitely better world design and level design than the second Dark Souls. And this is it, the worlds that From Software created. It's very like labyrinth-esque. They're a character in themselves. You'll see this. You'll be walking along a particular landscape or building edge or castle moat, and you can see something in the distance. And ages later in the game, you'll see yourself. You'll be like, hang on a minute, I'm here, and you'll look in the distance and you see where you were so many hours previous. It's got just a beautifully designed world with lots of verticality as well. You go up these huge towers, you go deep down underground in caves and labyrinths underground, and then you'll pop out of this other place. But it's just a beautiful organic world that's designed. Take my hat off to From Software for that. I could gush so much about this game. Love it. Right, number 2 in the list, and these two could flip-flop, but yeah, I'm happy with this, is Super Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. Love it. Great action platformer. Love the music. The music just, as soon as I think about the gameplay and the music, I'm instantly taken back to being 14 years old, 13 years old, in my old room at my parents' old house a couple houses ago, and where I'm positioned in my old bedroom, on my TV that had a white casing, and the computer table I had, and the chair I had, and the curtains drawn to not let any light in, I wanted that immersion on the screen, the volume cranked up nice and loud, sitting quite close to the screen, because obviously we had smaller TVs back then, like 14 inch was you know, a standard sort of size that you would have, and in order to make it seem bigger and immerse yourself, I would go up close to it and watch the game. But yeah, I can hear the themes and the soundtrack from this game and instantly be whisked back to that time period. Loved the game. They really pushed, again, this was a release window game, very early game in the Super Nintendo's life cycle, and it really did push the Mode 7 graphics to greater and lesser extent, and they did a few tricks in there, and each level felt different and fresh, and I loved the gothic, horror-y nature of the game. I've also got it on, is it a hand? It's up there, the Japanese version, which contains the blood and the gore and some more of the religious iconography, like the crucifixes and things like that, which they removed for the PAL version to censor our innocent child brains, which, you know, I don't agree with, but hey ho. Fantastic, utterly brilliant game. Loved the whip mechanics in it, and it was quite a fresh weapon to have for the protagonist instead of a gun or a sword. You know, this whip that gave greater possibilities rather than just killing enemies, dispatching enemies. You could use that to traverse and navigate the levels they were designed. So off hooks, you would swing across from level to level, and you could extend the whip and get greater sort of swinging. You could swing it out in front of you and just let the whip drop, and it would act as like a shield, or you could drop it down to the guys below and it would gradually, slowly deplete their energy and destroy them. It just opened up so many more gameplay mechanics. Brilliant game, and I must go back and play the earlier Castlevanias, which I do intend to do at some point, but that is always going to be in my top 3 games of all time, that one. And so is this one. Again, for the Super Nintendo, any of you watching who've watched much of my channel and videos might get an idea as to what this is going to be. It's The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now this was truly like going on an adventure, like going into another world and going on just an excellent magical adventure. Again, I remember playing this with a friend. Sunny days, it was on a summer holiday, I'm sure of it, or it was a spring break, because I do remember it being very sunny and nice out. Buying massive bars of Milky Bar, apple tangos, going back to my house, drawing those curtains, don't want any of that sun in here. Cranking up the volumes, turning the TV and the computer desk around to the bed, getting everything set up nice and cozy. Me and my mate with a little bit of munchies and drink, and just going on an adventure in this. And it really was an adventure. The way the game starts is great. You're in your uncle's house asleep as Link, and you can hear the rain going on outside and the sounds of a bit of rumble of thunder, and you go off to find out where he is, and the adventure picks off from there. And Ocarina of Time was very good, and I really did like Breath of the Wild, but this was the first, it was the first time, you know, the first real adventure, and that's what I felt games could provide, and they certainly did, but you needed to use much more of your imagination on the Sinclair Spectrum and the 8-bits. But by this stage, you could see with the fidelity and the power they had in the consoles, they could tell much more of a narrative, and the adventure aspects of this game, brilliant. The light and the dark worlds, going around the dungeons, which were really fresh back then, and obviously later on that's starting to get a bit stale. When you would go into different dungeons, you would then get a new weapon or object or thing in that particular dungeon that would help you kill that particular boss of the dungeon. Lots of things to discover, lots of little secrets. Just a fantastic game, so many great memories of it, and I've gone through and played that numerous times, and I always like to play it through to fully completing it. I won't get to the final boss Ganon until I've got every heart piece, all the bottles and all my magic and things are topped up to the max, and then I'll go and fight the swine. But yeah, that is my favourite game of all time. Love it. Right, done. That awful task, that wonderful and awful task is over. Like I said at the start, some of these could kind of change. They could go up and down the rankings. Some could come out, maybe a couple could come in. Now the only thing left for me to do is tag a couple of unfortunate tubers. No obligations though, obviously, you know, time's precious. If you've got the time and the inclination, it would be great to see your top 10s, but I'm going to go for 2 UK, Stu. You've got your games room. I've seen you've been putting out a little bit more content regularly now, and I'd be really interested to see your top 10, mate. I really want to get inside the head of the gamer of 2 UK and see what you select. So yeah, if you've got the time, Stu, that would be cool. I'd also like to see what Alex of Plutonic 78, what your top 10 would be. I'd be quite curious with that. Who else? Again, I think a few of the tubers that come to mind have already done this. I seem to recall some of the top 10 videos, but you know, if you fancy doing this as a video response, please do so, and let me know in a comment that you're going to do it, because I would love to check your videos out. We're all going to be different. We're all going to come at this from different perspectives. There's no right or wrong, and you know, they are naturally going to fluctuate as we change as gamers and get older and discover more games and things like that. But yeah, I've enjoyed doing this. Cheers again, James. And until next time, I will be back relatively soon with another vid. Hope everyone takes care out there, stay safe in this crazy world, and I'll see you again.